Alrighty, we're back with another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. I'm Mike Kadlick, joined by 98.5 The Sports Hub's Alex Barth. Barth, happy report card day.
Happy report. You used to hate it when I was a kid. It was the worst day.
Yeah,
no, you're going to get grounded. It's no fun.
Well, it stinks getting graded, but it's fun to grade people. So me and Alex both wrote some report cards up on our respective sites. So we're going to bounce through each position group on the Patriots and sort of evaluate and grade out where they're at through the first 9 weeks of the season. But first, I know we like to jump right into it, but I do want to start with a quick Patriots story that's been circulating the Twitter sphere a little bit today as my fire alarms go off. So if you can hear them,
I was going to say, is that you or me?
Oh, great. That's me. Hold on.
We had this happen with Evan once. Hang on, mute yourself so people don't have to hear that. You're also signed in on my Twitter. This show is off to just a great start. I don't know if you can see your name there. Says my name. So I guess we can. Why don't you step out and get back in, Mike? Just get your S together.
Alarms are off.
All right.
Alarms are back. Our alarms are off. My name is back. We're all set here. Now let's get into the story. As Dan Orlovsky, ESPN analyst for again ESPN. He's on several of their shows. He does a lot of film breakdowns and whatnot. But he went on WEEI's Maloney, Mego, and Fourier yesterday afternoon. I think he does a weekly spot on there, and they were talking about the disaster that has been the Colts and their coaching staff over the last week now, and they picked Orlovsky's brain a bit on if he would ever come to New England and want to coach the Patriots. And he was quoted as saying that if Mac Jones was here, he would, that he'd love the opportunity to coach under Bill Belichick, the greatest ever, and that if it was the right place at the right time, he'd be interested in it. I know that there's sort of a not stereotype, but like a stipulation around, media guys coming in and trying to think they can be coaches or whatnot. He seems like he has a good head on his shoulders as far as football goes. He played the game forever. What do you think about if that ever happened here? I mean, it seems like it would be better than Patricia and Judge right now, but just your thoughts on the fact that Orlovsky is sort of touting this, that he's ready to come into coaching.
It's an interesting one. I'm always a little wary of the guys in media who want to go right into coaching. Mike Mayock or general managing or whatever, those sorts of roles, office roles. Right. With Orlovsky, it's a little different. He was a player. I don't believe he has any coaching experience, but I've been saying this since the summer, basically since the spring, since Josh McDaniels left. They need a dedicated quarterbacks coach. They had, everybody talks about Josh McDaniels leaving. He took Bo Hardegree with him, who was really, when Josh McDaniels was coordinating the offense and doing all this other stuff, Bo Hardegree was the guy who was attached to Mac's hip, the representative of the coaching staff who probably spent more time with Mac than anybody else. They never replaced him. They never even brought in an illusion of somebody to replace him. That title is not listed on their, coaching layout this year. It looks like Evan Rothstein has kind of been that guy, but his background is not at all in that area. So as a quarterbacks coach, hell yeah, because I think they need somebody in that role, and they could do a lot worse than Dan Orlovsky. Anything above that, give me somebody with coaching experience. But as a quarterbacks coach, could they do better? Probably, but we all know what Orlovsky was as a quarterback, right?
And that's what I was just going to say. When I
respect Dan a ton, but there's you look at some of these guys. It's not like what's his name in Minnesota, who's the head coach there, who has him at 6-1.
Kevin O'Connell,
the Patriots draft pick, right? Kevin O'Connell was cut as a rookie by the Patriots. It's not like all these former quarterbacks that are now all these great coaches were Pro Bowlers. So yeah, I would definitely take Orlovsky here as a quarterbacks coach or assistant quarterbacks coach. I don't know how realistic that is, but if they were to make that move, I would consider it a move in the right direction.
Definitely. I mean, again, Orlovsky's known for, his safety stepping out of the end zone. When I tweeted out this clip from Maloney and Fourier, I used the picture of him stepping out of the end zone to kind of, that's what he's known for, right? But
that's when you think Dan Orlovsky, that's what you think.
Right. But someone who's been in the league for as long as he had clearly knows the ins and outs of the game. And it's not as if you're bringing an ESPN analyst like Jeff Saturday, which the Colts did, into a head coaching position immediately like the Colts did.
Right.
Him coming as playing a quarterback, continuing to, be a face on TV, but also clearly knowing what he's talking about, to be able to step into a quarterback's room, that's sort of where you go to start your coaching career. Not the jump that Saturday made, but that would be an appropriate jump, I'd say, for Orlovsky. And again, with what Patricia and Judge have tried to do in this quarterback and offensive room,
Right.
it's been a mess, frankly. And we'll get into that when we grade out the coaches here as well down the stretch of this podcast. But yeah, I would definitely also take Orlovsky if he came in knocking. So
Yeah.
let's get into our position grades here. We'll start actually with the quarterbacks, but before we get into that too, I want to kind of, I was listening to you and Doloff on the 98.5 podcast the other day, and listening to you guys had a bunch of caveats as to how you graded these guys, and whether it's, what have you done for me lately, or if we're taking the full season approach. So just sort of any stipulations that you have on your grades before we sort of get into it. Let's hear it out.
Yeah, the two ways I do it, obviously, football's a what have you done for me lately sport. And by the way, the Patriots don't do midseason grades. They do internally do a version of end of year grades and an end of year evaluations, I guess you could call it. And those are heavily predicated on really the last game or two of the season. Make up about 50% of that grade. So if that's how they do it, that's how I'm going to do it. Again, they don't do midseason report cards, but I'm not saying, I'm not just basing it on the last two games, because obviously that skews a lot. You leave out the Bears game and you go with back-to-back wins, but I'm more concerned with what's happened in, the last couple weeks in October and into November than maybe some of what we saw in September. Now, at the biggest position, quarterback, it's a little weird just because of how everything's laid out this year with the injuries, but I do use a recency bias when I do my grades. I don't know if you're the same. The other one is I sort of grade versus expectations, right? It's not necessarily just how good has the group been overall, but how good has the group been compared to what we thought they were going to be. I don't know. I feel like it's more relevant, right?
It makes sense. Yeah. You got to grade it against something, right?
Because when I started doing this back when I was working for CLNS full time in 2018, I mean, they were a wagon and everybody was A's. When we got to the midseason point, they were, I think, like 8-1, and Brady was playing great. The wide receivers, and it was like, all right, well, I've got to figure out a way to stagger this a little bit. So that's sort of how I fell into doing it. There's an element of, well, what did we really expect this group to do, and what are they doing?
Yeah, I agree. Similarly, just a little bit of recency bias, seeing kind of where they're at this point. That's kind of how it is. We're not going to judge something a room did in week one if they've greatly improved on it, and that's where they're at now in the bye week. So I mean, I'm there as well. Like you said, some recency bias, grading it against something as well is sort of the way I took it too, because we'll get into it when we get to the tight ends. But like a position group that has such expectations and doesn't meet them at all that's really telling. So let's start with the quarterbacks. I think that's the best way to do this. It's what everybody wants to hear, and it's the most important position in football. I will start with this one, and I gave the quarterbacks a C for this season. One of the few teams that have trotted out 3 starting quarterbacks in the first 9 weeks of the year. It's been a mess, to put it lightly, I guess. Collectively, they've thrown 9 touchdowns, 10 picks, a poor passer rating. If we want to grade them out, and rank them, I would say Zappi was the best, Mack was second, and Hoyer was third. Hoyer only played like 3 drives, but I mean, he was there and he was fine. But I'm not really going to count that. They're going to go with Jones moving forward. I think that a lot of the struggles they've had in the room have been more so coaching related, which is why I give them a C and not necessarily closer to a D or an F, because I think that it's hard to knock guys when what's around them, it hasn't been spectacular either. So, I mean, you want your first round pick in quarterback in the room that's around him to be higher than a C in his second year. That's usually when you expect them to take that leap. But I gave him a C. I think that they're just kind of middling right there to C.
Yeah, I went C minus. Kind of the same thought. Bailey Zappi keeping them afloat, albeit under different circumstances than Mac Jones. Let's not reopen that scab and they look the same. Bailey's better. It's different offenses. Deal with it. That being said, Max kind of had this weird progression where he came out super aggressive to start the season. Like the first 3 games of the year, he was super, super aggressive. He's average depth of target over 10 yards, throwing a ball, whipping the ball down the field. Obviously, there were a ton of turnovers, but you took those away. I mean, he kind of showed some of what you wanted to see in that second-year jump. Then he gets hurt. So it was like good, not great. And then he comes back after the injury. Now it's the opposite, throwing out the Bears games. He played 3 series. And he looked great. He's played 2 games. He's been super conservative.
He was worse than not great in the Bears. He was bad in that Bears game. It's
it's kind of its own weird thing. He didn't. My point is, he didn't throw a lot in the Bears game, right? But then he comes back. He makes these 2 starts, and he's super, super conservative all of a sudden. And yes, he's not turning the ball over, but he's not really doing anything. Period. So that's all disappointment. Again, Bailey Zappi kept them alive. If you could have won them the Bears game, this is probably a C+, because then that's like stealing them a game, right? But
yeah.
Like C- to me, it's just it's collectively below average. I don't think it's a disaster, because it at the end of the day, these grades are kind of weird because it's all interconnected, and the reason the quarterbacks, they've been put in bad spots. I think with what they've been given, they haven't done a lot with it. I don't think they failed with what they've been given either. We'll get to the group that's failed in a little bit here, but yeah, C- for me. It's just, there's a lot left to be desired. They're not failing, but there's a lot, because apparently a D is a failing grade, despite the argument I tried to make to my parents otherwise. That's what happens when your mom's a teacher, but not a failure, but there's certainly a lot of room for improvement.
Well, I mean, again, like we said, we'll get to the position group that's been failing the room, but they've been worse than a C, but it's not necessarily been their fault, which is kind of why I give them the benefit of the doubt here at the C. So that's where
that's where that versus expectations thing comes in.
Well, that's where like you just said, that's where versus expectations comes in, and that's also where where it's hard to grade each individual position group, because, like we talked about last week, how football is such a team game and everybody feeds off each other. But I go C. Barth goes C- on the quarterbacks. Let's move on to the RBs. You want to take this one first? We'll alternate.
Yeah, sure. I have, and by the way, all of my grades and full explanations are up on 985thesportshub.com. Put those up earlier this week. I went B+, and the reason I have a B+, I know that probably is low to some people, but Ramondre Stevenson, A+. Everybody else, like C- D. Everybody's heard me talk about this enough at this point. They have not gotten the secondary production at that position they need. And if they could have somebody supplementing what Ramondre is doing, then I think they're in A+ territory where they're really going above and beyond. Ramondre's done that on his own. He gets an A+ if we're doing individual grades. He's probably been their offensive MVP through 9 weeks. We're doing grades, right? I'm going to keep making school puns. It's a group project, and he's the only one that's doing the work right now. So if he could get some help, maybe that raises that grade up to an A level. But right now, they're like, call like an 89, not even a B+. Call like an 89 right there. But I need to see something from whether it's Damian Harris, J.J. Taylor, one of the rookies, something from one of those guys before I give it an A.
I'm on the fringe there, too. I went A-.
Yeah. So you have him at a 90. I have him at an 89.
Exactly. Yeah, they're asking to get bumped up. I said yes, you said no, because you're the mean teacher. But again, Ramondre's been one of the best running backs in the AFC this season. He's been a monster. But I think I would say that I feel like you're a little bit too low on Damian Harris. I feel like Damian Harris, when healthy, has been fine. He's been a solid second back when he's available. He's averaging like 4.5 yards a carry, or 4.3 yards per carry. I got it in front of me. He's able to pace their offense when he's on the field. He just hasn't been able to get out there, and I find it hard to knock him grade-wise for not being healthy. If you can't show up to the test because you're sick, you don't get a bad grade. These puns are awesome. We're going to be rattling these things off.
Please tell that to my English teachers in your ear. But anyway.
Well, it depends. It depends on, again, it depends on the teacher, which is why I gave an A- and you gave a B+. But,
yeah, there we go.
I mean, he's been able to pace them rather well. Again, 4.5 yards a carry. I think he has 16 first downs when he's out there. But injuries, whether it's the illness, whether it's the hamstring, has kind of banged him up a little bit. So it's tough. But everybody else, Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris, J.J. Haley, they've been no-shows. They played hooky all season so far. But Stevenson gets them to the A- because he's just, I mean, he's been a beast. He's catching the ball. He's second on the team in receptions behind only Jacoby Myers, which is something that he said he was going to work on this offseason, and he completely did it and excelled at already. So, He's been a beast. He's the reason the room's at an A-. Anything else on the backs before we keep going? Rapid fire.
No, I think that we can keep this moving. Yep.
Let's go. It's good stuff. Wide receivers. I will go and I will say a C+. Jacoby
Okay.
Myers. It's similar here with the wide receivers compared to the running backs. It's one guy in the group project pacing the entire thing. Jacoby's going to get a bag next offseason, and he deserves it. First on the team in catches, yards, and receiving touchdowns, and he's also missed 2 of their 9 games. That shows you how bad the rest of the room has been and how bad the rest of the offense collectively has been without guys like him and Stevenson. So he paces the room. He's what gets them to a C+. I don't think he's... I mean, if you look at the running back room compared to the wide receiver room, I have them at an A- versus a C+, because I think Jacoby's been a little... I don't want to say worse, but he's not as valuable as Ramondre is to the room, and the rest of the receiver room has been a lot worse than the rest of the running back room. Like, Kendrick Bourne's a shell of himself. What were we going to say?
No, I was going to say, this is where that versus expectations thing comes in, right?
Exactly.
This is sort of what we expected the wide receivers to look like. We all knew Ramondre was good, but this is, I mean, nobody was expecting him to be this guy. Right. Whereas the wide receivers is kind of playing out like what we thought it would play out like.
Yeah. I mean, Aguilar leads the team in fumbles. Like, Kendrick Bourne's been a shell of himself. I put that on the coaching staff too because they have these talented guys. I wrote about that a ton when I did my State of the Patriots address on CLNSmedia.com.
That was brilliant, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Go ahead and read it, CLNSmedia.com, if you haven't. But, yes, like, Parker's been incredibly hot and cold. He's been unhealthy as well. So, like, it's Myers and then a bunch of meh. And I think they deserve a C+, and I think they can improve on it throughout the second half of the season.
Yeah, I went C. I just went straight C again. It's kind of the same thing where it's been Jacoby all the way through. And like I say, he leads the team in every category, even though he missed 2 games.
Right.
There was hype for this group coming in. They added Parker. They added Thornton. It was like, all right, they've got some playmakers now. And Kendrick Bourne felt, due for a breakout, and none of it's materialized. Parker has had moments. He's had flashes. Aguilar was their best receiver at like week 4. Remember that? When it was, he's got that bad fumble, but he's rolling. Yeah, now he's totally fallen off. So, again, it's that versus thing. Jacoby, A. I don't know. I guess I give Parker probably a C-. Nobody else is really above that. So, averages out to a C for me.
I'm surprised you didn't give Kendrick Bourne a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt on his individual grade because I know you're a Bourne guy. But
I am a Bourne. He hasn't produced flat out. Now, why isn't he produced? It's not entirely his fault, but he hasn't produced.
Yeah.
I try to be objective. Even with my favorite players, I try to be objective. There's very few. You'll learn eventually. There's very few players that I struggle to be objective about. I tortured Evan with Gunnar Olszewski. I'm still doing it, even though he's not on the team. It's just not on the show anymore. It's via text. But I think I can be objective even about my favorite players.
No, of course. But yeah, like you said, Bourne hasn't produced. Is it his fault? Is it not his fault? I guess we'll be able to tell that more throughout the second half of the season and kind of see what adjustments they make here at the bye. Let's do tight ends. You can hit it first.
Yep. D+. Again, this is that.
We don't argue on this show, Barth.
We don't. You're right. Maybe we should have gone back and forth more with that B+, A- with the running backs.
Yeah, seriously. But no, I'm right there with you at a D+. Go ahead.
So I kind of started writing this before the Colts game, and then I made some changes. And tight ends is one of the positions I wrote ahead of time. I originally had a D-, and then Hunter Henry was their leading receiver. So that bumped it up a little bit because it's like, hey, they're making progress. They're starting to run Hunter Henry up the seam again, which they should be doing. But when you're paying those 2 guys that much money, you tweak the offense in a way that's supposed to be beneficial to them, and you're still not getting any production. There's 7 tight ends in the league right now, individually, whose basic stat line, receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns. There's 7 guys who have better numbers than Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith combined. It's just,
that's insane.
And again, this isn't necessarily to say Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry have been bums. We'll get to the coaching grade later on. But when you're paying these 2 guys the money you are, the offense is in theory, at least in part, supposed to be built around them. And it took until week 9 for one of them to really make an impact, and Hunter Henry being the leading receiver. What am I going to do? Give him a B? I have him at a D+.
it's another room, and it's tied into every single one where it's like, is it them or is it the coaching? Because I mean, they they were considered probably the best tight end duo in the NFL upon signing, right, in 2021. It
Right.
was like, oh my God, we have the next Gronk and Hernandez. They're gonna scheme this up. McDaniels is gonna love this. You know, it's you got a big body Hunter Henry, and you got a speed guy in Jonnu Smith, and we're gonna just completely ingratiate them into this offense, and it's gonna be, dual tight and everything. And it's been everything but that the last 2 years, and that is it because of their skill? I don't know, because again, there's one play last week where, I mean, Henry led them in the receiving, but there was this play, man. I was looking back on it. It's like he runs this corner route and he's running like he doesn't even care. And I don't know if that's designed. I mean, I don't know what they're looking at in their room like on a day like today when they go and review it, but whether it's an effort thing from those guys or whether it's just they're not getting schemed up right. Skill wise, they're much better than the way they perform, and so they deserve a D plus. And maybe that's more for effort, but that's where I have it. I have it at D plus. They, Henry. Hopefully they take this bye week and kind of do what we're doing, and they should.
And this is what they do essentially. Yeah.
Right. Take the good, build on it. Take the bad, and throw it out the window. And they need to scheme these guys up more because, I mean, Hunter Henry was a stud with the Chargers, and Jonnu Smith was a stud with the Titans, and they need to get those guys back because it's not like they're old either. They're older, but it's not like they're aging out of the position. They need to use their skill sets wisely, and they haven't yet, so they get a D plus. All right, let's wrap up the offense with the offensive line. I think I was a little lenient here with their grade, but I gave the offensive line a C minus because when they're healthy, they're very good. Trent Brown, Mike Onwenu, David Andrews, they're all like, I would argue, top tier linemen in the NFL when they're on and when they're able to, get in a groove and play their position for 16 straight games. That's what those guys are. But their health has just completely thrown them off this season. Andrews out with the concussion has turned Cole Strange into a disaster who had a great 6 weeks to start the season and has just completely fallen off without Andrews by his side. You bench Isaiah Wynn. You bring in Marcus Cannon. Marcus Cannon gets hurt. You have to bring Wynn back in to take over for Strange. Then you have Yadni Kajus come off IR. You put him at tackle. It's been a merry-go-round at the position, and it's completely ruining their franchise quarterback, and it's completely ruining their offense inside out from that position. But it's not entirely due to necessarily their skill set. I feel like it's more so due to injuries. And that's why I'm lenient with a C plus, because you could easily give them an F and fail them and say, come back next time and retake the test. But they have the skills there. It's just they're not utilizing it, and it's mainly due to injuries as well.
Yeah, I think that's too kind. I am a D minus.
Okay.
They're not failing because Michael Onwenu's been outstanding, and David Andrews has been very good when he's been healthy. But the injuries are not the reason that Isaiah Wynn has been an absolute turnstile. Your first round, I get it's tougher not playing next to David Andrews for Cole Strange, but he's a first round pick. He should not be unplayable without, whether or not he can play in the game should not be dependent on who you have at center. He's his own
But
player.
It's also only his 8th and 9th weeks playing in the NFL. So
when you're a first round pick means NFL ready. That
goes back to the coach.
It does, but he looked NFL. It was based on what he did the first 7 weeks. It did not look like he was going to fall apart without David Andrews, right? He was holding his own. So that's where I go beyond it. And it's like, it does sort of seem like a him thing. It seems a little bit, I don't know if it's mental or whatever.
It's got to be.
He looks different without David Andrews. That goes beyond the coaching. Trent Brown has been hit, here and there. I think he's had, if he was the biggest problem on the offensive line, I think they'd be okay, but he's committed a lot of penalties this year. That's not coaching. That the coach should just tell you, don't commit penalties, right? It is that simple. I know I often say that, I'm going to simplify things here, easier said than done. No, it is that simple. Don't commit penalties on the offensive line. Isaiah Wynn, again, is the most penalized player in the NFL through 9 weeks. That's beyond coaching. That's beyond coaching. That's just poor play. And you could maybe attribute some of it to them to Wynn and Brown switching sides in the offseason, but I'm sorry, we're 9 weeks into this thing. being the most penalized player in the NFL goes beyond coaching. Cole Strange, it's not like he's struggling. He's been unplayable. The coaching's a part of it, but it goes beyond that. They've been the worst. You gave the tight ends a D plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is what you said. Are you really going to sit here and tell me the offensive line has been worse than the offensive line has not been worse than the tight ends?
Well, the tight ends have been healthy, so I think that them being healthy.
Well, Isaiah Wynn's been healthy. Isaiah Wynn's been healthy. He is a PFF grade of like 40.
Okay, but if
let me put this another way. Let me put this another way. The worst thing you can do as an offensive lineman, the worst thing you can do is allow your quarterback to get hurt. It's one thing to get beat. When you get beat and the quarterback gets hit and injured, maybe not like broken leg injured, but gets up limping, that's going to be shown in the film room during the week over and over and over. There's no greater sin for an offensive lineman than allowing your quarterback to get hurt. The Patriots have had 3 separate quarterback injuries through 9 weeks. Matt Hurt is back in week 1. He then hurt the ankle, and Brian Hoyer got concussed. 3 quarterback injuries in 9 weeks is not a passing grade. It's not.
I still just think that with how great Onwenu is and the way that he's just able to, stay at his position.
He's
finally,
been an A. He's been an
A, and David Andrews, when healthy, is a B+. So,
I would also argue that and maybe this is just how I view the game, with the offensive line more than any other position, it's a collective thing.
It's a collective thing, but I also, again, I guess I'm too nice as a teacher. Maybe that's my problem here, but
maybe
I look at this with okay, injuries plus coaching staff equals it might not be entirely the player's fault. Aside from a guy like Isaiah Wynn, who it's tough because it's Isaiah Wynn who's, the bought out king and doesn't want to play and whatever. And you have to go to him.
Let me just remind you who you're excusing here. It's the guy that has committed more penalties than anybody in the league and was the blocker responsible for 2 of those 3 quarterback injuries.
No, I'm not excusing Wynn. Wynn's the guy I'm not excusing. I mean, I'm excusing Cole Strange because he's a rookie and probably shouldn't have been a first-round pick. I mean, that's his expectation. That's why he's there. But is he a first-round talent? Probably not. Plug and play, you have to do it because you trade a guy like Shaq Mason and you turn over the position to Cole Strange. But he is still in his 9th week in the NFL without a guy like David Andrews, who is the quarterback of the offensive line. I think that I want to see Strange continue to develop with Andrews back in the game, back by his side. Hopefully they get him back in week 10, or week 11, whatever they're going to be back at now. But I just think with the coaching being as poor as it is, and with the injuries being as poor as they are, and the trickle effect, right? I truly attest Cole Strange's inability to be on the field to David Andrews' injury, and I know that we're grading Strange's,
and that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
But I still want to.
I'll add this. Well, you keep talking about the injuries, right? You keep talking about the injuries. When we did quarterbacks, right? Sure. You had them was what, a C? I had them at C plus. Would you C something?
I had them as a C
minus. Okay, we both kind of said that grade was elevated because Bailey Zappi came in when Mac Jones was hurt and kept them afloat. That elevated that grade. Who's done that on the offensive line? You keep talking about the injuries, so you're bumping the grade up because of injuries. No, Onwenu's been good, but you're saying that the offensive line has looked bad because of injuries. That's why your grade is what it is. Your grade also is what it is for the quarterbacks, but the replacement players, the guys who have come into reporters who are hurt, player at the quarterback position, but played much better at the quarterback position than they did on the offensive line. There is no Bailey Zappi on the offensive line.
James that's Barrett, why it's only a C versus C minus. There's a difference there, though.
I think it's more of a draw. I don't think the difference between Bailey Zappi and Cole Strange is a C to a C minus. Maybe if you want to talk to me about Marcus Cannon, fine, but I don't think it's been that way for James Ferentz. I don't, and they don't have anybody else to go to. They can't get anybody else.
What Zappi showed at the end of the Bears game was okay, maybe he's just not that good, and that it's just, again, the root of all evil here is the coaching, which we'll finish off with. But
yeah.
I get what you're saying. That's the offensive line. That's the offense as a whole. Before we get into the defense, we're talking about guys and how bad they're playing at their jobs, Alex. So let's talk about jobs yet again here with our friends at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. We use LinkedIn Jobs here at CLNS Media, and we can't recommend it enough. It's super easy to post your job. Then you just add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experiences so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. As we inch closer to December, now's the perfect time to add the right team member and end 2022 strong. And that's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs as number one in delivering quality hires versus their leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/beat. That's linkedin.com/beat to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, offense. We basically agreed. A little bit of a disagreement on the offensive line there. Let's transfer into the defense. We'll start with the defensive line, and I'll allow you to kick this thing off. One thing that I don't know if it's confusing for listeners, viewers, etc., or even me and you, but where do you have Matthew Judon? Is he a defensive lineman or is he graded as a linebacker?
I mean, team lists him as a linebacker, so it's funny. Every time I've done this exercise, this is the question. I did it with
tough,
Zoe during
right?
the week.
Yeah.
When in my whole thing, and look, if you asked me to define him, I might call him a defensive end, but he meets with the linebackers room.
Yeah.
His locker is with the rest of the linebackers, and it's next his name on the roster there is LB. So when in doubt, I go with the way the team defines him.
I'm
for
there
something
as well.
like this.
Yeah, that's where I did it as well. So it'll correlate. So as much as he doesn't line up as a true off-ball linebacker, he's a linebacker in the Patriots book, so he's a linebacker in our book. So with that said, let's go to the D line, and you can kick us off.
Yeah, I went with a B minus. They've been good. The rushing game's still kind of killing them. They're actually allowing more yards per carry to this point in the season than they did last year, but it's been really up and down. I'm just pulling the numbers. That's why I'm looking over here. 243 rushing yards against the Bears, 199 against the Packers, 188 against the Ravens. But they only have one other performance that they've allowed over 100 yards rushing against, and I don't remember the team, but it was 101 yards. Mm-hmm. I want to say that was the Steelers, but I'm not positive. So, look, they've looked better in the pass rush. Dietrich Wise obviously having a phenomenal year. They are clearly missing a Christian Barmore. They have been the last couple of weeks, but I went with a B minus. I think they've more or less been what we expected. I don't know that there's been any growth outside of Wise, but I don't know that there's been any regression either. We can add this little what was it called when you voted in the yearbook? Remember, you voted for people to be like most likely didn't ever leave town. Yeah, we can add this little superlative to it. Which group do I think has the most opportunity to improve their grade when we do the final grades in a couple of months? I think it's the defensive line. They're at B minus right now, which is a good spot to be. B minus student over here, but I should not be talking about how bad I was in school. People are stop taking me seriously. I'm hammering this point home.
Well, did you win any superlatives?
Yeah, but it's embarrassing. I don't want to admit it.
I'll say mine if you say yours.
No, people can go and get their hands on a Sharon High School yearbook and figure it out.
Somebody find it and send it to me.
What's yours though?
I had most school spirit as a senior. Got him high.
I most definitely did not win most school spirit.
I didn't really have much school spirit. I don't know why I got it, but
I mean, I'm guessing you're quarterback for the football team.
I was the quarterback of the football team, so I guess
I feel like that's a default thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think the defensive line has the most.
I need to know yours.
Get your hands on Sharon High School. You can do it. You can. I'm not going to tell you how, but you can do it. Without coming over, without coming to my house. It's accessible. I think the defensive line is the most room to improve their grade this year.
Yeah. I went with a B. Similar, but again, I think the injuries, I give them more of benefit of the doubt. I mean, Wise, Barmore guy, it's really solid place to start your D-line. I mean, Lawrence guy is always consistent. Barmore's a young star, and Wise is having the best year of his career. But injuries to a guy like Barmore have kind of depleted the room, and that has trickled out from him. When he's there, they're much better. When he's not, they're much worse. It's as simple as that, but I think that once Barmore gets healthy and can continue to, add that aspect to the room, that like you said, it's similar, right? I mean, they have room to improve because of the health
Yeah.
they'll get back with Barmore, who is one of their better players when fully healthy. So if Barmore's there all season, I think they could be closer to a B plus to an A minus. I
Yeah.
think again they can improve, and if he was there all season, I think they probably would be closer to a B plus. But he hasn't been, so that's been tough. Linebackers. Let me change this out here on screen. Linebackers. It's Matthew Judon's room, but he's the reason why I gave them a B plus. He's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. 11 and a half sacks, paces them each and every week. He's really the only reason they're sniffing B plus territory. Him and maybe Josh Uche, who's come along and sort of he's had the best year of his career so far in 22. He's come on strong the last couple weeks, but which is again, it's a recency bias thing because he wasn't great to start the season, but he's come on strong. But like, I don't know, Jelani Tavia, Raekwon McMillan, Mac Wilson, they just haven't been consistent enough to get this room to the A minus that they could be because of how dominant Judon is. They need to improve, but if you count Judon in the room, they're a B plus because he's on a defensive player of the year track right now.
So it's funny if you. I also had a B plus.
Okay.
If we split it to inside linebackers and outside linebackers, the outside linebackers are probably an A plus with Judon, with Uche coming on strong here as of late, and that's really what they've needed. I've said this a lot. They don't need like an ace pass rusher opposite Matt Judon. They just need somebody who's just good enough to keep the opposing team honest, where they can't overblock to Judon's side. And right now, Josh Uche looks like that. And also, Anthony Jennings has played well on early downs, a guy that a lot of people were ready to write off coming into training camp. So the outside linebackers are an A plus. In the middle, I don't know, like a C minus, where Juwan Bentley's actually been pretty good, I think, as a run stopper coming down here. Like, he's had a good year. Tavia, I'll say it, has not been horrible.
No, he's been better than expected, but he's still not great.
Look, they've put him in a role where he can play to his skill sets, and he's played well in that role. You know, it's as an early down edge rusher, they're bringing him up the middle on occasion. The reason the grade comes down, though, is we spent so much time this summer talking about really Raekwon McMillan and Mac Wilson and how they were going to add that athleticism,
speed
that
at the
athletic
position.
edge, like the speed to the middle of the defense there, and that was going to be the game changer, and that hasn't materialized. So it's really, to me, those two guys that are keeping them from that A range, right? Yeah. Matthew Judon's been fantastic. Doesn't only lead the league in sacks, but leads the league in sacks by 3.5. He's on pace to I mean, he's on pace to break Andre Tippett's franchise record of 18.5, 22.5, which is the league record tied by TJ Watt. Strahan also has it. Yep. That's in sight, assuming he doesn't drop off like he did last year. So he's been fantastic.
Another game helps
Jennings,
too. Right. 17 games helped, but
Uche, well, Watt did it in 17 games last year.
No, right, exactly.
Right. Uche, Jennings, Bentley have all been, about what you'd expect, maybe a little bit above what you'd expect, but no flaws really with what they've done. Tavia's been fine. And then it's really, the depth at middle linebacker that's keeping them out of that A range.
Yeah, it's the fast guys that we thought were going to bring this to an elite bunch that has sort of dropped them off.
They haven't. Exactly. At least not yet. Not yet.
Right. Yeah.
We'll mid-season grades.
There's room to improve. It's like when you got the progress report, not the report card, where we should have called this progress report week, and then you showed the report card at the end of the season. Too. But yeah, I know, me too. My parents would not be pleased when I came home. But hey, we still have room. It doesn't matter. You get grounded. Yeah. Anyway, cornerbacks. Cornerbacks. You can go, but I mean, I'll give my grade and then you can go. But I think it's an A. I have no complaints with the quarterbacks room. But
A minus. A minus.
Okay.
The one flaw kind of being Miles Bryant early in the year. That's pretty much it. Anything outside of that, maybe I'm being nitpicky there. I've clearly been nitpicky this whole night, and I'm usually one of the most positive people covering the team. Yeah. But Jonathan Jones has been outstanding. Hand up moment for me. He totally works on the boundary. He's been great.
A seamless transition from slot to the boundary.
Jack Jones is PFF's number one corner. Jalen Mills is another reason I didn't quite go to an A. He's actually allowed, I think it's about 60% of the passes thrown his way to be completed. it's not like he's being targeted a ton, but his on-ball production hasn't been quite what it was last year. He's still been very good. Don't get me wrong. Still been very good. And then Miles Bryant's actually put together some really good football here the last couple of weeks. I know it was Tavia. Now I'm going with Miles Bryant, but again, I'm looking at my numbers here. He didn't allow a multi-catch game either the last 2 weeks. He hasn't allowed new catches in a game since week 4. It's not like he's playing any less. The play time's about the same. So, him kind of starting to bring this thing full circle is what pushed me up into that A range. Obviously, Jack Jones, Jonathan Jones have been outstanding. Those two guys are A's, but again, it's that complete collective group, and you're starting to get that production from the slot corner position where, hey, okay, this thing really feels full. And then again, the other reason I put them up in that A range, it's against expectations. We really didn't know what to think of this group at the beginning of the year. Remember, when we were doing the roster projections, it was like, well, you got to put somebody on. Is it Terrence Mitchell? Is it Malcolm Butler? We didn't even know if Miles Bryant was going to make the team. They've come a long, long way. So honestly, if I had to change one of the grades I did, this is the one. As I kind of say it out loud,
bump it up to the A, baby.
Should have given them an A. Maybe I wanted to give them room to grow. I don't know, but they've been outstanding, fantastic at corner.
No, I'm with you. I think that, like you said, against expectations, a room that we thought was in complete no man's land has just been freaking awesome. Like I truly the only nitpick would be the Miles Bryant thing you said at the very beginning of the year, but he has improved so much since then that if it wasn't for that, they could literally be an A+. And so that's why maybe I go to an A, because it's just been phenomenal. I mean, best unit on the team by far. Jalen Mills, like you said, hasn't been targeted too much. When he does, he's okay. But again, it's not like he's getting burnt, right? He's not out there getting toasted every other play like you see some other guys in the league that are supposed to be number 1 corners go out there and get toasted. Jonathan Jones, seamless from the slot to the boundary. Jack Jones fitting right into that Patriots pipeline cornerback thing that you had with Revis and Gilmore and J.C. Jackson. It's like he's going to be the next one of those guys here soon. They have, like the Steelers have with bringing in receiver talent, the Patriots have a keen eye for cornerback talent lately. And whether it's them coming off the street or whether it's, again, you have guys like Juwan Williams and who was the Duke Dawson. So some of them aren't great, but they're filling out that cornerback room year in and year out. Miles Bryant improving, so I really have no complaints on them whatsoever. They've been awesome. They've been the best room on the team thus far. Let's transition to safety. Safeties, I have them at a B+. Kyle Duggar is elite, and everyone else has kind of been meh. McCourty, you can see that he's aging. He's solid. He had the double interception game against the Jets, but Zach Wilson sort of ran across the line of scrimmage and handed him the football and put it in his chest. So I think that that's more so on the quarterback, not on Devin McCourty out there making plays like he used to in his younger days. But he's okay. Adrian Phillips fills the void. He can always be better. I mean, he's consistent, but he's not a star. Jabril Peppers, same thing. Josh Bledsoe needs work, but they can't cover tight ends without Kyle Duggar in the game, and even when he is in the game, it's not outstanding, and that's an issue. I mean, the run stuffing ability with Duggar and what Peppers does, I think brings them to that B+, but they don't get an A or an A- rather, because they have coverage issues and they need to fix them.
Yeah, I'm about half a grade behind you. We use similar logic. I guess I'm a tough grader. I had them with a B for a lot of the same reasons. Kyle Duggar's been great. Yeah. Adrian Phillips has, played well. Jabril Peppers is starting to come on here. And again, this is another position where there's maybe some room to improve, but it's just been a little alarming what it's looked like without Kyle Duggar on the field. And Kyle Duggar's been on the field, it's been fine. Like you said, they're not great at covering tight ends, but every group's going to have some sort of weakness. When Duggar's not on the field, though, it all does seem to sort of fall apart for them. So B, I gave him a B.
It's the health thing too. Like and to compare it to the next group we'll do is the specialists, but Duggar is not healthy, so I have a hard time nitpicking the room. Where specialists, which I gave a B+, they've been outstanding, but Jake Bailey knocks them down to a B+ because he's been bad and he's healthy. Like he's got the yips, but everyone else has been awesome. Nick Foles' consistency, outstanding. Brendan Schooler's turning into the next Matthew Slater on this team. Marcus Jones, rookie, who's like one of the better return specialists in the league already through 9 weeks, flips the field for them every single week. If Bailey can turn this thing around in the second half of the season, which, I mean, he has the ability to flip the field from a punter perspective. It's whether or not he can actually just get out of his own head and kind of get it done and fix that. And I think, 2 weeks to do so can bump them up to an A. But I give the specialists a B+, but they have room to improve, and it's basically all on Jake Bailey's shoulders to improve the room.
Yeah, so it's funny. I went back and I looked at my grades from the 2020 season because I felt like the special teams is kind of in a similar spot to where it was then. Obviously, Bailey's been better, was better then, but obviously all kind of the same. And I gave them a B+ at the midpoint then, and Gunnar Olszewski did have a return touchdown at that point. So no return touchdown, can't give him as high as a B+, right? So I was a B. No, Nick Foles.
You are tough. I don't want to be in Barth's class. Mr. Barth has a bad rate my professor grade. I'm gonna go in there.
So I also, like I said, I kind of worked on some of these a little bit ahead of time. The DeMarcus Mitchell play was a little fresh in my mind. I'll admit that.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it, but there's
been a couple times, and look, maybe this is. It honestly probably all comes back to Bailey. Maybe it's a Jake Bailey thing where they've had some issues downing punts. Jake Bailey's not been good. And again, it's also sort of the reverse expectations thing. He looked healthy this summer. They give him that big contract. I was expecting him to be one of the best punters in football. He hasn't been. You also go back, they had some miscues early in the season with returns when it was still Miles Bryant back there. But since Marcus Jones is taken over, it's been outstanding. The kickoff coverage, the punt coverage, when it's like actually down tackling a defender instead of down in the ball has been outstanding. Nick Folk's been unreal. I think I already said that, but it's worth saying again. You can't say it enough. So, I went with a B. Once they house a kick, they're in the A range, even with Jake Bailey.
Yep.
So,
specialist again, better, but it's Bailey. Bailey's gotta get that thing fixed. Let's wrap up the grades with the coaching staff, which we have sat here and ripped to shreds, at least offensively, for the last 45 minutes now. Do you want to start? No, you know what? Let me kind of caveat this because I don't know if we're going to be on the same page here because I gave them a C-, and I think that you're going to think that's too lenient again.
Well, okay, I got to figure we're going to do offensive coaching staff, defensive coaching staff. If we're netting it out, I don't necessarily disagree.
The C- is my net. I didn't separate them.
Okay.
I probably should have, but let me explain why. Because I think the root cause of the disappointing play we've had from the Patriots is the coaches and not the players. They have talent on this team. Outside of, like, the 5-4 record is directly from, at least on the offense, directly players and directly the head coach is the reason they've even been able to win 5 games. Patricia and Judge are stunting the heck out of Mac Jones' growth. It's kind of disgusting, frankly, because we've gone into it, but like you have a second-year quarterback. You have the opportunity to mold this guy into what you think you can be. You just saw, and this is kind of why, like, this is on Belichick. As much as he's not a bad coach, the decision to bring these guys in to try and mold Mac Jones is laughably pathetic, and the offense has been a disgrace because of it. So those two bring this thing down. But the fact that Belichick's on your staff, or is your head coach rather, and Gerard Mayo and Steve Belichick have exceeded my expectations on the defensive side of the ball because those are guys who last year were subject to the similar speculation we're giving these guys on the offense. Gerard Mayo is a guy who's been in here, been in the system. He's proved he's a decent coach, but people thought it was a nepotism thing because, he was a Belichick linebacker, and now they just bring him in. And then same with Steve Belichick. Oh, he's the coach's son. Now you give him the keys to the car. And last year, even when Belichick took over the defense, they got better, thus proving that it was Steve and Mayo who weren't great. But Belichick seems to be hands off the defensive side of the ball this year, and they've been really good, which is what pulls up the net to a C-, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean it's probably like a B+ for the defense and an F for the offense. So I guess that gets out to a C-. Like, I wouldn't say defensive coaching staff's gone like There's no moments like, wow, that coaching, and
Right.
there are,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have those moments, right? Sometimes it's just you do what you're good at. Um, like Steven Gerrard, it's going to be insane and I said this last year, I'll keep saying it. Gerard Mayo deserves a head coaching job. Like he so
Yeah.
obviously deserves a head coaching job. This year's no different. He's been great. Steve's been great. I'm a big fan of DeMarcus Covington and kind of just getting to talk to him
Yeah.
a little bit more this year and learning how he views the game. I'm a really big fan of his.
Pellegrino too
So
seems to
yeah,
have a good
he's
head on
good.
his
So
shoulders.
defensive coaching staff, no notes. I think they've got this thing running. And you look at, I guess what the above and beyond element would be is not necessarily any game plan thing. And this probably goes more to a guy like Mike Pellegrino than it does to Gerard or Steve. This cornerback room was just so inexperienced.
Yeah.
And, one of your boundary corners doesn't play on the boundary. You've got two rookies you've got to work in. Miles Bryant was never really a high volume player until this year. It's really just Jalen Mills. And they've got them playing the way they were playing. I mean, that's a lot of that is coaching. A lot of that is
Yeah.
coaching. So, maybe I go A-. I didn't write coaching grades, but call it B+, A- somewhere in there for the defensive coaching staff. They've been no notes. The offensive coaching staff, all of the notes, every note. There's so many notes from, going back to the summer, and they spent 2 months tinkering with this offense that they're now not really using. And that's time wasted in the flipping the tackles, which never made sense, and benching Kendrick Bourne, and the way they handled the quarterback position and Mac's injury in the game against Chicago, and the unimaginative offensive playbook they're using, and the lack of setup plays. Mike, right, 51 minutes. We'll be at 51 days by the time I get to all the notes, right? So it's just it all goes back to that. They have the Patriots in their heyday. The whole thing was they didn't need to go out and get these guys that were supremely talented. They had them, but the idea was you're really good. They identify guys that you're really good at one thing. We're going to bring you in and ask you to do this one thing, right? We're just going to have you do this one thing that you're really good at. And the idea was that with the whole 53-man roster, they could fill all the things they needed to fill. It's not about collecting talent. It's about building a team, right? And I still sort of think they're built that way. But the problem is that's reliant on the coaches to put those players in those spots to succeed. And there's not been a lot of that this year. And it's been a little bit jarring because that was such a hallmark of what they were for 20 years.
Yeah, agreed. Again, like offense, like you said, what you just said specifically to the offense is what you're saying, right? They're not. I mean, the defense has been fine with that as far as putting guys in positions to succeed. The offense has been the complete opposite of that in 2022. The last line of my report card, actually, as I use it to kind of gauge and give me some talking points here, is just that I said the same thing, that I see a head coaching position in Gerard Mayo's future. I think that he's proven it. He's as Mac called Matt Patricia, I think Gerard Mayo's a leader of men. I think that he can, rally the troops, and he's good. He's got a good head on his shoulders, coaching wise. I think he's going to be a head coach very soon. Whether he is a Mike Vrabel Belichick disciple or a Matt Patricia Belichick disciple, time will tell. But I think Mayo has a head coaching job in his future. But there you have it. That's our midseason report cards. Hopefully they can make adjustments at the bye week here, get this thing squared away, and make a real playoff push here, because I think they have the talent to do so. It's gonna depend on the coaching, and I think that at the end of the day, the way we wrap it up with coaching makes a lot of sense, because a lot of the reasons that some of the grades weren't as high as they could have been was due to the coaching staff. So there you have it on the report cards. Alex, do you want to touch on Thursday Night Football before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I can't even remember where the game is tonight, honestly. I've been so deep dive into like halfway point of the year stuff.
Barth, if you had to guess, right? Okay, yeah, okay, yes, it's Panthers Falcons.
Hell yeah, baby!
Yeah,
hell yeah,
good.
Sickos football on the menu.
Yes, the 4-5 Falcons visit the 2-7 Panthers.
Somebody got my my superlative. Wow,
where are we?
Sleuth figured it out.
All right, can we put it up? Can you put it on the screen?
Yeah, I guess I have to.
Yeah, you got to.
Destined for fame was what it was called.
Barth was most likely to be famous. Oh, that's not embarrassing. Come on, what are you talking about? Look at us. That's
no, it's destined for fame. It sounds a little weird. Every Massachusetts high school yearbook's available online. That's the thing they did recently. So
Okay.
It was out
Interesting.
there, but
That's
I'm
awesome.
going to hope that this is somebody I went to high school with, because if not, they figured out
That's
what year I
awesome.
graduated and they knew where to look and all that. I mean, that did not take long.
That's good stuff. Well, that's because you're
Wow.
so famous, Barth. Everyone wants to know what the heck's going on
I
because you made it.
guess.
You
And
made
there's
it.
no other
98.5.
comments from this person in the chat. They just came in, dropped that, and
That's
went out.
outstanding.
I,
That's good
I I'm gonna
stuff.
I'm just gonna assume that's somebody I went to high school with, because I don't know if I could sleep tonight if it's not.
That's good stuff.
So
Barth is already famous.
yeah.
Someone just said, "I love it." That's good stuff. All right, but let's do. That's great. Let's do Thursday Night Football. 4-5 Falcons visit the 2-7 Panthers. Panthers breaking out their Black Panther uniforms. They got black helmets, so changing up the uni swag, which me and Barth know and love. Spread, Atlanta's 2.5-point favorites. The total's 41.5. Last week was Eagles and Texans. What sides were we on there, Alex? Because I can't remember if I'm
I
undefeated against
lost.
you.
I'm
You
like 0
lost.
for 5 on these
Yeah,
picks.
I am undefeated in Thursday Night Football picks here. It's at Carolina. PJ Walker's starting. I hope we can go opposite again. I think I like Atlanta plus 2.5. I think they're going to win outright. Carolina's kind of been on a roll lately, but I think that this is kind of the end for them with what they've been doing.
So this is tough for me because I love me some PJ Walker,
See, I love
XFL
Kyle
MVP.
Pitts, but go ahead.
But seriously, the Falcons, I thought the Falcons drafted like all the niche players I wanted the Patriots to draft last year. They draft who did they Troy? They draft Troy Anderson. They drafted D'Angelo Malone. They signed Jared what was his name, the converted lacrosse player.
This is your wheelhouse, Barth, not mine.
Jared Bernhardt. They signed Jared Bernhardt as a UDFA. There's a couple other guys that I really liked that they brought in. So let me ask this: what's the over under?
41.5.
I'm going over. Light it
Over?
up. I know it's always unders on Tonight Football. I'm going to lose again, but I got my guy PJ in there. Honestly, the only guy they didn't draft that I wanted them to draft, I have a friend who's a Falcons fan, TJ Horgan. He works for Fantasy Pros. You can follow him on Twitter. TJ's a big Falcons fan.
TJ.
He always texts me before the draft, and I remember saying to him, because I sent him like a Falcons mock draft because I just did one because I was bored, and I had them taking Bailey Zappi, and he said, "Why do you have them taking a quarterback in the 4th round?" And it was like right before the Patriots actually picked him, and I said, "Look, I know you're a big Marcus Mariota guy. That's fine. Bailey Zappi could win the starting job in Atlanta and make the Falcons a playoff team in a couple of years. So if they drafted Bailey Zappi, I would have been all on the bandwagon. But
that is Barth. That is Alex Barth in a sentence. I was bored, so I started to do a Atlanta Falcons mock draft. I love it. That is so good.
Anyway, give me the over. I like both teams, so give me the over.
All right, fine. You know what? You go over, I'll go under.
No, you know what? Actually, no. You know what? I'm supposed to be this guy that, like, when everybody gets all hot and bothered over offensive football and hates low-scoring games, I'm the one who comes in and says, hey, appreciate good defense. So I'm going to root for both teams. Then I have to root against PJ Walker. Yeah, give me the over. Yeah, I almost took the under. Give me the over.
So what are we counting? Are we counting our over versus under, or are we counting Falcons versus Panthers? It's your choice.
You know what? I hate those Panthers black helmets. I don't think they look very good. Give me the Falcons. Okay. Give me the Falcons.
All right. Okay, fine. So what we're grading here, since we got to go against each other, Barth is on over 41.5. I'm on under 41.5, and we'll reassess that next week. But for now, thank you all for watching. That was our report cards. Next week we will be back on Tuesday here on Patriots Beat. We're going to do a full Q&A episode. We're going to go rapid fire questions with anything you guys want to bring. So make sure to be here next Tuesday. Fill the chat with questions. We'll answer everything we can get to. And then the following Thursday, we'll preview the Jets game. So that's it for us. For Alex Barth, I'm Mike Kadlick. Thank you all for watching.